Welcome to the InnovaBuz podcast, where our job is to help you build visibility, professional credibility, and connection with your ideal client by putting the human at the center of innovative marketing, so you can build and strengthen an engaging, enduring relationship with your ideal clients. I'm Jürgen Strauss from InnovaBuz, and I'm honored that you're here with me. If you haven't joined our wonderful marketing transformation community yet, go to InnovaBuz.co and collect your free gift as well. Do subscribe to the show and also leave a review because it helps others find us. Let's get into today's masterclass on this InnovaBuz podcast.
Fess up when you make a mistake. We all make them, and it's bound to happen in business at some point. And people can forgive mistakes, and they're a lot more forgiving when you actually admit what happened. And many companies take the route of being defensive. But when you're actually straightforward about it and you explain the situation, it's just the human thing to do. But your customers will genuinely appreciate being spoken to on that human to human level. And when you explain what actually happened, they'll understand. People are far more understanding.
Welcome back. I hope you've had an awesome week so far. If you haven't yet listened to my recent conversations with Will Reed of Samurai Walk and with marketing coach Charlie Wyman, then check them out after you've listened to today's conversation. On today's episode of the InnovaBuz podcast, it's my great privilege and I'm really excited to welcome as my guest Hayley Greene, a former retail expert turned copywriter. Hayley works with online retailers to help them get sales with Facebook ads and with email marketing strategies that forge genuine relationships with customers and keep them engaged and coming back for more. Her focus is on turning casual fans into loyal shoppers that you get to know on a first-name basis. In our discussion today, Hayley talked to me about understanding your customer's behaviour through the lens of your customer experience. How marketing is involved in the entire customer journey, even post-sale. And the importance of talking to your customers and helping them achieve their goals versus just focusing on selling products. Without further ado then, let's fly into the hive and get the buzz from Hayley Greene. Hi, I'm your host Jürgen Strauss from InnovaBuz, and I'm really excited to welcome to the InnovaBuz podcast today, all the way from Washington, D.C. in the USA, Hayley Greene. Hayley helps e-commerce brands increase their revenue through higher customer lifetime value, and she does that by writing and sending out strategic email campaigns. Welcome to the InnovaBuz podcast, Hayley. It's a great privilege to have you as my guest.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here.
Iman Zabi, who was our guest on episode 269 of the InnovaBuz podcast, suggested that we get you on and have a conversation with you. So big hello to Iman.
Yes. Iman's wonderful. I've worked with her for a couple of years.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's very talented.
We had a great conversation with her on all things copywriting. So I'm looking forward to exploring with you the copywriting aspects of driving an e-commerce brand. But before we do that, give us a kind of a whistle-stop tour of how you got to where you are today and what were some of the big milestones in that journey.
Sure. So my background is actually in retail, specifically fashion retail. And that's how I ended up specializing in my work with e-commerce brands. It just made sense. So I studied fashion merchandising in college, and then I entered the world of visual merchandising after I finished school. And I know from experience that most people have never heard of the job visual merchandising. So The easiest way to explain it is that I designed the window displays and the in-store displays for clothing stores. And it was this form of silent marketing. And I really consider that role to be my introduction to the world of marketing. That's where it all started for me because that was how I became obsessed with the customer experience, their mindset, and everything that goes into serving customers, which is a really key part of my strategy today,
Hmm.
even even though the work is shifted online.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fascinating. So what were some of the big learnings from your experience in designing window displays and in-store displays that you've kind of taken on into the online world?
Sure. So it's actually quite analytical work. When we're in a store shopping, we don't usually think about the displays in the store unless something happens to catch our eye, but it's all very strategic and decisions are based on applying data to creativity. It's kind of that mix, which I find is really how I approach copywriting too.
Mm.
That's marketing,
Yeah,
right?
that's right. Yeah. Well, it's fascinating because I was having a conversation yesterday with one of my guests, and we were talking about how people sell and market in store and about the relationships that build up. So, you talked about customer behavior, and I'd really love to dig into that some more. But the conversation kind of went along the lines of once people start to market online, they suddenly decide that it has to be different. And they kind of forget about the fact that there is actually a customer who's going through a journey and there's a relationship that has to be built, and it really is fundamentally the same as an in-store experience, except that it's online. So there are some differences, but the fundamentals are actually the same. And what happens with a lot of marketing online is that the fundamentals are thrown away and everything's done differently, and it becomes very transactional.
Yeah, 100%. And there is a lot of overlap, right? You talk about that buyer's journey, but when you enter a store, you're also going on a journey too. It's laid
Mm.
out to direct you in a specific route throughout the store. And it's all based in psychology, and you place things in certain areas so that it triggers certain emotions and that you're not overwhelming a customer. Like when you first walk into a store, there's not going to be merchandise like right when you walk into the front of a store, right? It's further back, and that's because if a customer walked into a store and saw that, it would be very overwhelming. Um, so you're kind of moving them. It's not the same as moving them through a funnel, but you are kind of moving them through that journey through the store. And yeah, I think there's a lot of overlap with the online world too.
Yeah, well, if you think of the big department stores, I mean, they do typically, I don't know, I think it's the same in the US, the big department stores, they do typically have the cosmetic and perfume area right up front. So that tends to be a little bit in your face early on. But one of the things that they typically do will have an information board right at the beginning where people walk in so that people can then look and say, well, how do I find men's clothing, for example, if that's what I'm looking for? So they provide the information to guide people and help them go on their journey to wherever they want to get to first before they try to sell them something. So you work with e-commerce businesses and you help them build better customer relationships and sell more. But I like that you sort of put the customer relationships first. So what are some of the things you do when you work with those businesses?
Yeah, so I help e-commerce brands. My goal is to always keep customers coming back for more through primarily through strategic email campaigns and copywriting. That is the key to profitability as a company, right? Customer loyalty. And I think when you focus on that customer experience and the service, you really have more of a long-term mindset because I see customer retention as the path to true growth in a company. And It's really common for acquisition is a crucial part of the business too, right? You have to bring customers in, but it's easy to get so laser focused on attracting new customers that we might lose sight of focusing on that retention and the experience. When in truth, it's really a very small percentage of people that are loyal, come back and shop with you again, and they usually wind up generating the most revenue for your business. And so my focus is on integrating that customer experience into your marketing efforts. And I really see two main paths to customer experience, and that is talking directly to your customers through customer interviews and also through email marketing in the post purchase sequence. So the communication that happens after the sale.
Mm. Yeah, that's fascinating. I really like that you do that because I think a lot of marketing, particularly online, is so focused on acquiring new customers and they ignore existing customers at their peril. I mean, not only that do they ignore existing customers and lose the opportunity to have them buy more, but they actually annoy them to the extent that they lose those customers. The classic example for me is the telcos and the internet service providers are really great at this. They will put out an offer to their email list saying, "Oh, this month," or let's say because we're right in the middle of the COVID pandemic right now, so a lot of people are doing special deals and special offers to help people manage cash flow at this time. And so an example might be, oh, because of the COVID-19, we're offering a 50% discount on our internet service plans or our mobile phone plans, but it's only for new customers. And so if I'm an existing customer, I say, oh, I would actually love to take advantage of that plan, of the 50% off plan to reduce my costs. They say, no, no, sorry, it's only for new customers. So they're so focused on attracting new customers that they will actually tell their existing customers, no, you can't have the special deal. You have to pay twice as much as the new customers. You've been loyal for so long, but you're going to get penalized as a result.
And it's such a missed opportunity.
Hmm.
We all get tons of emails from e-commerce companies to go back to what you were first saying, and most of them are all the same. We're having a sale, come buy this thing, find the perfect gift for someone. And that all blends together when we're scanning through our inbox, and we've been trained to expect that in e-commerce. Here's a picture of these products to buy. But then to go back to what you were saying, those loyal customers are getting punished when really they're the customers that you should prioritize.
Hmm.
They're the most important customers, and actually, when I do customer interviews, those are the people that I like to focus on is those loyal customers.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about some of the emails that you would suggest a business send out after the purchase to continue to build those relationships?
Sure. So, I see email marketing as a customer service opportunity in many ways because after the sale, it's really a chance for you to be proactive and anticipate customers' needs. So, for one thing, you can use email to educate customers about your product, right? Because
Mm,
after the sale happens, the post-purchase, it's a make it or break it chance for your company, really. People are
yeah.
excited when they make a purchase, and we want to build on that excitement. We want to get them anticipating the delivery of the thing they just ordered in those emails. So the key to this, though, you don't want to send them a bunch of emails before they actually get the product, right? That's just going to annoy people.
Yeah.
But when that order is delivered and that automated email is triggered, you can immediately trigger out a follow up about their purchase. And way to approach this is to use your customer interactions to discover what parts of the post-purchase journey are confusing for customers. Like, what are people's most frequently asked questions? Have you heard of any tips or tricks for an unexpected way to use your product? Uh, what part trips people up when they're first trying to use this product? Or can you show images of real life customers happily using your product? People really respond to that.
Mm.
Genuinely thank them and remind that person of why they made a great decision when they decided to click that buy now button. Um, you want to get them engaged with the actual product right away. You want to get them using it because how many times do we impulse buy something, especially
Yeah.
with e-commerce, and we get that hit of dopamine when we buy the product and then we don't even use it.
Mm.
And it just like sits in a box and collects dust on a shelf. So that's why the post-purchase flow is such a key opportunity to really get that customer, that brand new customer engaged in your brand.
Yeah. I think I think there's so many really valuable points there. I agree with you. The amount of times, and I've done this, bought things, and it might be a service, it might be a training programs are classic. I've bought training programs that I've never even looked at, and they sit on the shelf because there was no follow up, and of course I forget about them. So, and we do this with all kinds of things. Or the other typical one is something will arrive. It's a physical product. Let's say it's a mobile phone, just for an example. That was one I had recently, and I bought it for a particular reason, and then I started trying to use that app on the phone, which was unique to this phone, and it turned out to be not intuitive. It was more complicated than I thought, and so all of a sudden my excitement collapses. I'm disappointed. Oh, this app doesn't actually work, and that is a real lost opportunity as well. So making sure that if you then turn those experiences around and say, okay, now I'm selling that mobile phone, and I've heard from customers that these are some of the frustrations. Well, how can I make sure that once that phone arrives, that the people know, hey, here's how to do this. Here's a step-by-step guide how to run this app, and here's how to get the best results out of it. So there's lots of opportunities to educate people. And the other thing, I think, in between, like once the purchase is made, there's some great opportunities to build the anticipation. Say, well, here's what's going to happen next. You know, it'll be 3 to 5 days before your item arrives. Here's how you can track it. There are so many things you can do to make the experience wonderful, even before the product's actually arrived.
Of course. And that's the important thing, as you mentioned before that product arrives, is really communicating. Um,
Mm,
because this actually happened to me over Christmas. This past holiday season, I had ordered a gift, and I don't know what was going on with the company. They were transitioning warehouses or something. The product ended up arriving a month later.
mm,
And in between that, I got a shipping confirmation email and then nothing.
yeah.
And I was struggling to reach their customer service line. I wasn't worried about it at first, but after a couple weeks, I was like, what's going on here? Am I actually going to get this product? And it was it wasn't super expensive, but it wasn't super cheap either. It was like a couple $100, and it was a gift for someone. Um,
Mm,
and it was just a really disappointing experience because I was a brand new customer to that company. And now they did later on apologize and sent out some really great emails there, which I appreciated. And they were kind of able to turn that experience around. But I completely empathize with how frustrating that can be with customers. And I always try to remember that when I'm marketing for companies as well.
mm. I think one of the things that I really like about your approach is the concept of your providing the customer a great experience. That's the number one premise of your marketing strategy, and that's pretty easy to do, actually. um, it's surprisingly easy to do. People think it's rocket science or something, but it's actually surprisingly easy to put yourself in the shoes of a customer buying something and say, well, what would be a great experience for me, and how can I provide that if I'm the supplier to my customers?
Yeah, that's spot on. It is surprisingly easy. It's just putting yourself in their shoes. And it's all about finding balance too. You don't want to we don't want to overwhelm customers with too much
Mm.
information immediately after the purchase. This marketing should happen over time. And it's all about serving people and adding more value to their lives. But I can guarantee you this type of marketing is far more likely to engage your customers than just sending promotion after promotion. And I'm not saying we don't sell at all in emails. We should actually always be directing people back to our website, right? But not by spamming their inboxes or
Yeah.
being a nuisance, just being relevant in the readers' lives.
Mm. Being relevant. That's really important. And provided, I think, a lot of people are saying email is no longer a really good medium because we all get bombarded by lots of emails. But I think what you've said there is really important. If it's relevant, if it's information that adds value, then people are going to read it. I mean, I certainly know I go through my email list. The first thing I do is mark about it 20 or so for immediate deletion. Actually, no, the first thing I do now, I've got a rule. Before I open up a single email, I have to pick 5 to unsubscribe from. So that's my number one rule. Then the second thing I do is pick about 20 that I just immediately delete because I can tell from the headline that it's probably going to be a sales thing or a reminder of some sort that's not relevant for me. And then I go back and actually read some of the remaining emails. And, generally they will be ones that have information that's of value to me.
Sure. And I'm curious, how many emails on average would you say you actually read a day when you're going through this routine?
Um, Probably about 10 emails of a general nature. So that's on top of, so I would read emails I get from people I know or customers. If a customer emails me, obviously I'm going to read that and respond to that. Or if I'm having a conversation, like for example, we might be having a conversation prior to the podcast, so I'd certainly read that. But outside of those ones that are part of my day-to-day business, there might be 10 emails I read.
Sure. And as you said, it's because so many of them are just predictable. And when we mix things up and your content is unpredictable, that keeps people wanting to open your emails and click on them and read your content. So, what can we do that's unexpected? And how can we entertain people? That's what people are really seeking online, I think, is entertainment and
Hmm.
relevancy.
Yeah. Okay. Well, what's your approach to mixing those things together? So you want relevancy, value, and some entertainment.
Sure. So it really depends on where they are in the buyer's journey. A great example of this is Glossier. I'm not sure if you're familiar with them, but they're a beauty brand and they have incredible email marketing. Like I open every single email. They're always short and sweet, but they're fun and they put a smile on my face. They have a very minimalistic email marketing too. They send out like behind the scenes content or they'll send out these fun quizzes like what's your skincare routine? And obviously that skincare is based on the products they're selling and
Mm.
the results will share their products with you, but beyond that, they'll provide useful information about your skincare routine. So that's really a great way to demonstrate how you can personalize your content to an individual reader and make it useful. It's all about helping your customers achieve their goals. In their case, it's their skincare goals. But when you deliver this personalized, interesting content, you're doing exactly that.
Mm. Yeah, I like what you said there about helping your customers achieve the goals because I think that's the key here. So if taking that skincare example, so you could take the approach of if I'm the skincare company, my goal is to sell more of product X or of product category X. But my customer's goal is, could be take better care of their skin. It could be to look better. It might well be because there's probably a whole lot of unconscious goals that they're getting. So it might be to do with feeling more confident about themselves. And so to understand the customer's goals and then help them achieve those goals. So they haven't achieved that goal necessarily when they've purchased the product or when they've received the product even. So they've got to actually use the product and use it in a way that helps them achieve that goal. And if you take the approach that I will continue to educate them and help them achieve that goal, I think that's the secret.
Absolutely. And if you think about it, our inboxes are very personal spaces, and we give brands permission to be there. So we owe it to these people to deliver a great experience. And so many companies aren't doing this. So when you do, you become really memorable to your audience. And community or communication is just a major opportunity in the e-commerce space.
Hmm. Now, you also talk about the experience of or getting the business in front of people and connecting through storytelling. So that experience. So how do you approach the storytelling aspect of writing a good email, for example?
Well, I go to the customers first. That's part of my process when I work with stores is customer interviews. Ideally, interviews. If we can't do interviews for some reason, then we should send out a survey at minimum. I like to do both. Surveys are fantastic and we can learn tons from them, but interviews really take things to another level because in the process of interviewing customers, businesses, we can gain inspiration. We get to actually connect with our customers and learn how we can better serve them. I almost don't even like using the word interview because I can
Mm,
see why that might feel unpleasant to some people. It might sound like this really time consuming huge task, but it talking to your customers doesn't have to be formal and it doesn't have to be this like huge time suck. It's just a conversation like we're having.
yeah.
And I'll be honest, you don't even have to talk very much when you're interacting with customers. You just have to listen because, we like when others listen to us and people love to share their opinion, especially when they're a customer somewhere. And those customers like being involved in the decision-making process, especially if they're those VIP customers, those loyal customers that we were talking about earlier. It's an honor to them to speak with you.
Mm. So you start with the interview of the customers, and I think that's a really powerful point you've made there that, it can be a conversation just talking to people. I mean, if you think back to what we were saying at the beginning, where people walk into a store, what's the first thing that typically happens? There'll be a store attendant come up to you and say, "Can I help you?" So um, certainly that can, depending on the tone and how they do it, that can sound salesy, but normally if they do it well, it's really, "Yeah, can I help you?" You know, tell me something, and then a conversation will ensue. So why not do that online? So how do you take those conversations then and kind of turn it into copy or turn it into stories that you can use to educate the customers from the business?
Yeah, well, the reason that I like to talk to those loyal VIP customers is because you can get the best insights about your products from those people who've actually purchased them. They know about your products on a deeper level than people who haven't ever bought it can, and they'll talk about your product in ways that you just never knew about. And so I will record those interviews and get them transcribed, and I go through them and I'll look for patterns and I'll go through and just highlight within the pattern text, just copy that really jumps off the page at me and that I find really interesting or something that's a new idea. And I'll turn that into copy. You're taking the words directly from your customer's mouth and putting them back into the page. That's how you relate to them.
Hmm. Yeah, I love that idea.
Yeah. And well, people are sometimes hesitant about doing these customer reviews. It takes up time. We're anxious to just get to the end results of the deliverables, right? And running the campaigns, which I totally understand. But at the end of the day, everyone always tells me they're so glad we interviewed customers in the end.
Yeah, I think the using the customer's language and and understanding what their frustrations are and what their goals are and how they might be using your product. That is so powerful. So I really like that. Now, then you highlight things and pull it all together. So, how do you structure the campaign in total? So that might be one email. So, what's your strategy for having an ongoing campaign? And because I'm guessing that being regular about sending emails to clients is important.
Oh, yeah, it's important because we want to stay top of mind, right?
Hmm.
It depends on what type of emails it is. I do recommend sending out sales emails, but it's a mix of sales emails and nurture emails. So, circling back to that Glossier example where they sent out that quiz to their customers, and it was that skincare quiz where you got the result at the end that told you which one of their products was best for you. That's something that I would consider to be a nurturing type of email because it's
Mhm.
more about engagement and it's a softer kind of sales message. So you really want to send a mix of those. And I use those interviews to really guide the campaign and the number of emails. And that's really the starting point. I developed the strategy around that customer feedback. And you can also get that customer feedback from reading transcripts, like from, chat transcripts if you have a chat support on your website or phone
Mhm.
transcripts or even emails. I comb through product reviews. You can find a lot of really fun insights in product reviews. Like I was working with a watch company recently and they build these incredible watches and they're a direct to consumer brand and their customers love their watches. But when I was looking in the reviews, you found a lot of the feedback was talking about the unboxing experience of what it felt like to receive that product, and it was really thoughtfully designed packaging and that entire experience. They were talking about that, and they were talking about showing their watch off to their friends and how impressed people were. Whereas the instinct as a business owner is to just talk about your products all day long, right? We're obsessed
Yeah.
with the products that we create, and I totally get that. But it's not just about the product to the customer. So I really build those campaigns around all of the other things they're talking about. And I break each one into a different email. That's how you keep generating interesting content because I don't want to send these super long emails that no one's going to read, right? You want one goal in each email, one
Mm.
topic.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple of really golden nuggets in what you've just shared, and so obviously the one you finished up with, one goal, one topic per email. I think that's a really important one. The other one I think is just somebody said this to me recently about reviews, and I thought that's brilliant. So I think we can learn a lot from that using reviews or using chat transcripts if you have a chat function or a support function online that can actually give you the language that customers are using, can give you the things that they're most excited about or most frustrated by if it's negative. So that, in the watch example, it's obviously excitement over the unboxing experience and sharing or telling their friends about the watch, showing their friends the watch. So it's giving you the customer experience from the customer's viewpoint. So that's really great advice. So do you have any other little tips for us like that that we can learn?
In your email marketing, I mean, my number one tip, I want everyone to go out there and do this so badly. Just talk to your customers, pick up the phone and call them. Now, when I send out the surveys, my favorite way to do it is to send out those surveys. And then the last question in the survey is asking them if we can reach out to them,
Mm-hmm.
um, you know, and talk to them more. But picking up the phone and calling them, it makes that big of an impact, and every time I do a round of customer interviews, not only does the client appreciate it, but customers are so genuinely appreciative of it, and that's where you're really building that loyalty. People will tell me how much it means to them that a company wants to hear their voice. Every time I do a round of interviews, somebody will say, like, wow, this is somebody that I want to do business with. Thank you for talking to your customers and hearing from us. And you're showing these people how important they are, which is quite meaningful. And can you imagine making that kind of impact on someone as a company? It's pretty powerful.
Hmm. Yeah. And if you turn it around, right, you think, wow, that's I feel pretty special. They made me feel pretty special. And just like Maya Angelou said, people forget how what you did for them. They forget what you said to them, but they remember how you made them feel.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Yeah, like you said, it's a great connection for both parties, I think, because the customer feels good, and like you said, you feel really great too, because you brought joy to someone's day.
Hmm. Yeah, I had a couple of really bad experiences recently, and I thought they should actually go through their own support system because in both cases I spent over 3 hours on chat lines or on the phone to answer one question, and it was a pretty simple question. It was really, is this right? Is this information? One was, is this information correct, or where did this information come from? Because it wasn't correct. But I started off with, is this information correct? Because I thought they go defensive straight away, but they went defensive anyway. And the second one was it was my mobile phone stopped working right at the beginning of the coronavirus pandemic lockdown that we had here. So I went online to find out how I could get it repaired, and of course they said, "Oh, bring it into the store." And I said, "Well, that's an interesting strategy given that the stores are closed and we're actually not allowed to go out for anything but essential services. And whilst I think my phone's essential, I suspect it might not qualify under the legislation." And so then it took a 3 hour conversation to figure out, you know, a simple answer, which was basically, here's a number, take that number to your post office with a package with the phone in it and send it, and they'll send it into the repair center. That was the outcome, but it took 3 hours to get there. So my point is that it's such a bad experience, and so much so that in that example, I said to my wife after this was all done, I said, if they can't repair that phone and I have to buy a new one, I'm not buying that brand. And so you think about those experiences and turn those around and say, well, if I had of the fact that the phone died on me was a frustration, but if they had have made that repair experience so awesome and so easy for me, I may have even said, well, yeah, the phone, I was disappointed in the quality of the phone, but I'm going to buy another one of those because that experience was so good.
Yeah, and think about that missed opportunity for them. You're gonna remember that experience. You
Yes.
were just
And
talking about people.
I've talked about it a lot.
Yeah. And you talk about people will always remember how you made them feel. You were just speaking about Maya Angelou's quote. Well, it's the same way, especially for negative emotions. People
Mm,
really remember those negative experiences when they look back at a company. And to your point, it's so important for the marketing and customer service to be aligned because customer service is delivering that promise that we made in the marketing.
mm. And I think that's a really important point, isn't it? And that's where it comes back to following up with emails and a nurture sequence post purchase, because marketing is still happening. It's not like a different department. Okay, we've made the sale, so marketing and sales can hand it over to customer service or to the delivery people to deliver the product. It's still marketing because the customer is, and we talked about customer journey at the beginning, the customer's going on a journey. It's still the same journey. It might take a different fork in the road at some point, but it's still the same customer and still his journey.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Hmm.
It's funny you say that. I was working with an e-commerce store and we were running Facebook ads, and we were running a lot of ads. They had quite a large ad spend, so we would get a lot of customer service comments or questions or messages in our inbox just because they would see that ad in their feed and it would be top of mind, right? And we were like the marketing team, we weren't the customer service team. So we would direct these people to the customer service, to the appropriate person to contact, and they would come back to us because they felt that we empathized with them and that we
Mhm.
were the most helpful. Like people would tell us that this happened multiple times in a season. And they were like, I spoke to so and so at this company and I'm coming back to you because you seem to be the most helpful. But the crazy thing is, like, I wasn't even helping them because it wasn't in my power to,
Yeah.
as the marketing team, right? That whole situation was outside of my control. But all we would do was listen to them and acknowledge their frustration. We would, like you said, don't get defensive. We would just say, hey, I completely understand where you're coming from and we're going to make sure you're taken care of. And that's all they want, right? People just
Mm.
want to feel acknowledged.
Mm. Yeah, that is a really important point. And when you take that out into a bigger picture and say, well, one company acknowledges their clients or the people contacting them in that manner, and the other one does more what your customer service department did there, well, they'll keep coming back to that first company. So
Yes.
it is really important. Hmm.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I could go on talking for ages, customer journey, and particularly I really love the idea of the post sale follow up and continuing to nurture, because I'm very passionate about that. Marketing is actually the entire customer journey from when somebody first finds out about you as a business to right through to after the sale, and nurturing and turning them into raving fans, because those people who, like, I shared my story about the phone, but if I had a really fantastic experience, then I would be a raving fan of that company, as opposed to what I am now. I don't know what I'd call it now, but yeah, and it just makes sense from the business point of view as well, and also it's the right thing to do.
Yes, it's the right thing
Mm.
to do.
So I think it's a good point to move on to the buzz, which is our innovation round, and it's for the listener to learn from your experience and maybe take away some tips that will have them go and do something awesome today as a result. So I've got 5 questions, and hopefully
Sure.
we'll get something really insightful from you. So, what do you think is the number one thing anyone needs to do to be more innovative?
Okay, well, at the risk of sounding like a broken record, make more time to interact directly with your
Yeah.
top customers. Um, because here's the thing, we all know we need to be talking to our customers, right? We know how important
Mm,
they are. But I also know that in reality, it's tough to do in practice when you're running a company. There are 10 million things to do a day when you're in business, but I'm telling you, it will absolutely blow your mind. And I guarantee you'll come out filled with dozens of new ideas, whether that's product ideation or customer service or marketing. It's always eye open.
yeah, that's such wonderful advice, and you've given us a whole range of examples throughout the conversation today of how that can be then brought back into product design and the whole customer experience design. So yeah, wonderful. Now, what's the best thing you've done to develop new ideas?
Okay, so I love history and I often seek inspiration from the past. I'm really into antiques and vintage things, and
Mm,
I find it amazing how inspiring studying history can be. There have been millions of incredible ideas before us, and we can breathe life into those ideas and bring it into today's world and make it something completely new. And we can also gain a ton of inspiration from business leaders in the past. I love seeing what made them innovative leaders and how they built these lasting businesses.
mm, that's wonderful. That's an interesting perspective looking at history. I think there's a lot that we can learn from history. I mean, the typical thing is in politics and maybe even in this COVID-19 situation, we could possibly learn from more from history, but certainly taking ideas out of things that you might discover in a vintage store is a new one for me. Hmm. All
It's a
right.
lot
Do
of
you have a
fun. Yeah.
I'm sure it is. Yeah, I know my son is very much into vintage things and enjoys that. All right. Now, what's a favorite resources that you have that you use a lot?
Resources as in tools or systems.
Yeah, it could be tools or systems or books or
Uh, I mean, it's going to sound ridiculously simple, but it's what works best for me. I'm guilty personally of trying to do way too much in one day, especially when it comes to work. So I first write down, I take pen and paper and I combine pen and paper with project management software. I use Asana, but I first write down on paper 3 big tasks I want to achieve in the day. And then I organize it all digitally, right? I find that putting the pen to the paper is more creative for me because
Mm.
creativity usually comes with an idea that's like just a kernel, and then I organize it all in my software. It makes it easier to focus. Otherwise, I'm trying
Mm.
to do a million things. I get started on something and I don't finish it. So that's how I
Yeah.
work within my own constraints.
Yes, I think we can probably all relate to trying to do too much in a day. I've got a task that I've added to my daily task list now that just says trim the task list. That's one of the things I do. So it's sort of the same philosophy as I was talking about the email earlier. Um, but yeah, I like the idea of starting off with pen and paper and being creative because that certainly is, I think, gives you more creative freedom than software or a screen and typing, but then using the project management system online to organize it.
Yeah. It makes it
Mm,
easier to focus.
yeah. All right. Now, what's the best way you know to keep a client on track or a project on track?
That's a great question. I think it's all about setting expectations. Um, Not only is that the best path when it comes to customer experience, but it's also an essential piece of the client experience because clients are busy and they're hiring you because they think you can help them. And they're actually relieved when you can be proactive and take ownership of the project.
Hmm.
Sometimes you might just have to remind them or nudge them, but especially in the beginning, I believe that there's no such thing as over communicating and really just taking the reins of the project and saying, okay, here's how we're going to start. These are our next steps. And then each week checking in and saying, all right, here's where I am. Here's my next steps. And here's where we're holding. Like, here's the block,
Hmm.
as in, like, here's what I need from you to keep going. I find that usually is the best way to keep things going.
Yeah, that's great advice, and it comes back again to the philosophy of your copywriting, which is talking to the customer. All right.
I'm
Now, what's
obsessed
the?
with the customers.
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Oh, sorry. I said I'm obsessed with the customer mindset. I apply it to everything.
Yeah, great. All right. What's the number one thing anyone can do to differentiate themselves?
Being transparent. Um, Fess up when you make a mistake. We all make them, and it's bound to happen in business at some point. And the example you gave about your mobile phone is the perfect example. People can forgive mistakes, and they're a lot more forgiving when you actually admit what happened. And many companies take the route of being defensive. But when you're actually straightforward about it and you explain the situation, and it's just the human thing to do, but your customers will genuinely appreciate being spoken to on that human to human level. And when you explain what actually happened, they'll understand. People are far more understanding,
Hmm.
I think.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. I think that it's a fallacy that businesses think, and I mean, the other experience I had was a government agency, but that clearly there was a mistake made, and they were they took great lengths, went to great lengths to make sure that there was no blame attributable to them, and yet it was a glaringly obvious mistake, and yet had they said, "Oh, that was an oversight. We're really sorry. Here's how we're going to fix it." First of all, I wouldn't have been on the phone call for 3 hours. It would have probably been dealt with in 15 minutes. And secondly, I would have come away thinking, well, that was easy, and it would have been a good experience. And I would have said, well, the people make mistakes, like you said.
Yes,
So yeah, good suggestion. And it's certainly because of the experiences I've shared, it clearly will differentiate you.
absolutely.
Thanks, Hayley. This has been really great. Now, where can people find out more about you and maybe even reach out and say thank you for all the gems you shared with us today?
Sure. Well, you can find me at my website, which is haleygreen.com. That is Haley and green, like the color, but with an E on the end. And you can also find me on LinkedIn.
Okay, and we'll post links in the show notes so people can click straight through and make sure they get the spelling right. All right. Now, do you have a parting piece of advice for our listener today?
I guess the number one piece of advice I would give to any business is outside of customer experience, of course.
Yeah.
It would be, and I say this because this was something that held me back a lot in the beginning, but be decisive.
Mhm.
Leaders, great leaders make decisions they can stick with, and that's how you move forward and make progress in a company. Listen to your team and accept their input, but don't waffle around and debate decisions as a team. That's how you get stuck and, projects and goals kind of fall off the map. But just, make a decision and stick with it.
Hmm. Yeah, that's great advice. And it kind of comes back to that people are looking for certainty and recognition as well, but the certainty in that sense, in that situation of knowing that the leader, we've made a decision, the leader is going to see that decision through now and support us, which comes back to the same principle in building those relationships with the customers, the certainty that the business is there to serve them. All
100%.
right. Fantastic. And finally, Hayley, who would you like me to chat with on a future InnovaBuz podcast and why?
Oh, yes. Okay, so I would love to recommend Jen Myers. She is a longtime entrepreneur, has ran many businesses, but is now a Facebook ad strategist and a consultant. And she is a leader in the health and wellness space and is also currently launching another product business. So she's a busy woman, but an all around brilliant marketer. And I would also recommend Jessie Lewis. She coaches consultants on their writing and messaging. She's really talented and such a joy to speak with about business. She has a ton of experience from working with marketing agencies, but with every conversation I have with her, she really, this is even just on a friendly level, but she really gets you to think about things in a very unique way.
Great. They sound like wonderful guests. So we'll reach out to Jen and Jesse, maybe get an introduction from you and have them on the InnovaBuzz podcast for a conversation as well.
Yes, I would love to.
Thanks so much for sharing your time and your insights with us today so generously, Hayley. I've really enjoyed this. I mean, there have been so many really valuable suggestions that you've given us today, and I'm sure that the listener will get a great deal out of this today. So take away those golden nuggets, implement some of that, go talk to your customers, and Hayley, I wish you all the best for the future, and let's keep in touch.
Thank you, Jurgen. It was wonderful to speak with you. I really enjoyed our conversation too.
I hope you enjoyed that wonderfully informative conversation with Hayley and took something away from her episode. I really love her entire approach to marketing, putting the relationship with the customer at the core and helping the customer achieve their goal regardless of whether they buy from you right now or not. I'm really curious to find out what you took away from Hayley's episode. please share that in the comments below the blog post, which you can find at innovabiz.co/Hayley Greene. That is HALEYGREENE. All lowercase, all one word, innovabiz.co/Hayley Greene. You'll also find contact information for getting in touch with Hayley there, as well as links to her website, her social media pages, and all of the other resources we spoke about in today's conversation. Hayley suggested that we have a conversation with Facebook ads strategist Jen Myers and with writing coach Jessie Lewis on a future InnovaBuz podcast episode. So Jen and Jessie, keep an eye on your inboxes for an invitation from us to the InnovaBuz podcast, courtesy of Hayley Greene. Tune in again to the next episodes of the InnovaBuz podcast, where we've got some more fantastic guests lined up, including Sam Keck from Common Folk Coffee and a very special episode 300 with George Bryant, where we talk about all things marketing using his lighthouse metaphor. Thanks for listening to this episode. Make sure you subscribe to the show to be reminded of new episodes. It's free to subscribe. Leave a review if you like. Even if you don't like me, I'm okay with that. I'm asking you to leave a review because it helps other people find this show. Go to innovabiz.co to join our marketing transformation community and access a free gift my team and I made for you. It's the Marketing Master Mini Class. We want to give you everything you need to transform your marketing into a human-centered, relationship-focused growth engine. Until next time, I'm Jürgen Strauss from InnovaBiz. Remember, be awesome and keep innovating.